chromate out of zinc chromate? Yeah, I'm happy. That's good. This is going to clean up good.
Just like the bottom paint.
Yeah. Good. So the other place is right here. I was worried about the corrosion, water collecting in here.
Nope.
She's in great shape. Look at the spreaders. I think these are original.
I'm disappointed about the electrical wires.
Or the lack thereof.
Yeah, I think they're still okay.
Yeah, just cut them back a little bit.
A little scrape them a little bit, cut them back.
Bronze base winches, bronze base cracks, bronze base ice straps. Everything is bronze. Bronze and aluminum hate each other. The bronze wins and aluminum loses, and it just tears everything up. So that's the first rule of the jungle. There's only one boat in the yard, you know that. A new boat. Yeah.
Nobody ran a router around it.
Well, they didn't at the factory.
No. Oh, really?
No, it's just the way they were made.
You're kidding.
I think that's original.
When we replace them, we run a nice router around them.
That's the way they were made.
Oh,
Great. Yeah, it was straight from the factory that way.
really?
Yeah.
What's kept them all these years?
White paint. I'm very impressed with this. I thought this was
We'll build
big
these
deal.
metal.
Yeah, I got some. So we'll build a bracket down in here and slot for these things well up top. And then taper it down.
Yeah.
The only thing they're controlling in the class is the distance from the root to
Right.
the stake. So Buzz, knowing that we're going to try and do some class racing with it, what would be your recommendation on fixing this spar and versus, say, doing a new spar? And what's your opinion of what you see here at this point?
Well, this spar is in pretty decent shape. It could be fixed. You have to really check to see what the cost of repair and repainting would be, because many times it's more expensive to repair and repaint than it is to get a brand new spar.
We would probably have to go right down to bare metal and start over, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you would have to do that, and your desire to stay in one design class is a really nice one. It helps with the resale of the boat, and it's also a good competitive class. There are quite a number of them. A lot of people are looking for the boats, and most of them will stay with the single spreader mast and sail one design. Well, these old sections were very light. They're very thin walled though, and what they suffer from, they were never designed to be bent. In the old days, nobody bent rigs to flatten sails. They were just designed to sit straight in the boat and kind of stay very stable, and as it is, it will do that. Once you start to bend them, though, because of the very thin walls, they suffer from localized buckling, meaning they collapse on the backside. And that's happened to a number of them. What the newer sections can do is allow you, because they're set up more to be able to be bent, and allows, the section shape and the wall thickness allows much more of an ability to bend them, even though a single spreader rig, isn't going to bend like a 3-spreader racing rig. It still will handle it. You can flatten the main, make it look good, and that may be a consideration for getting a new mast. This is a section that we use for the Cal 40. It's a little different. These older sections are sort of a full round on each end and then a flat side. It's an extension of where they came from originally, which was flattening irrigation pipe with rollers, and that's pretty much where Cal started getting their extrusion.
All right.
The newer sections are set up to allow for more load on the compression side, which is the aft side when you're bending the mast. It's flatter across the back. Those side walls are a little bit thicker. There's a little bit of thickening in the front. That increases the moments of inertia and makes the mast less prone to localized buckling, which is what happens when you try and bend one of these thin sections.
All right, because there's compression on the back side of the spar. It'll just, the thin walls that are there just won't take it.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I noticed that our old mast has some taper to it, not a great deal. Can this be tapered as well?
Yep. This can be tapered. The kind of the standard taper is one that leaves 60% of the parent section
Okay,
on masthead rigs. Fractional rigs you can taper more because the loads are lower.
right.
But it's a good way. I mean, aesthetically, it's nice to taper the weight up there, and you can take out a number of pounds, which is really
Alright.
hard to do in any kind of mast by tapering. And because the loads are so much less at the tip, it takes a lot more load to bend, so the tip will bend better.
Well, that would be a concern. I wouldn't want to go through all the trouble of trying to do the painting and remodeling and then bend the rig for racing and then have it collapse on deck.
Yeah, and that's happened to quite a number of masts.
Okay. So you think all the money and labor and time that's going to go into this, we're really looking at a new rig, little cleaner connections for the spreaders, little cleaner, more modern masthead system. We get all new hardware on it.
Right.
And that's going to be an anodized rig.
Yeah, the anodized is a very good finish, really hard, and lasts a long time. Anodized can be painted over too. If somewhere down the road you want to have paint, you can use an etch primer and paint over it. But
Okay.
it's lighter, which is a nice thing. The paint weighs quite a bit, and we can clean up a lot of the details. I mean, these are the really old style details, with the external
spreaders,
tangs and the old spreader. This is the old one that used to have wooden spreaders, I'm sure.
Yep,
and
it did.
it's got an inboard end with a couple of holes and the spreaders pin on. The wooden spreaders eventually rot, and it becomes a strength problem. Now what we use is a spreader through bar, which is a bar that just goes through the mast. The spreaders slide over the bar and bolt to it. So it's extremely clean. Depending on what kind of rigging you use, we can also put the seats for the diagonals in the spreader bar itself. And that's very clean. You see no external tangs. It's a very nice, very, very strong method of attaching.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense to try and clean up all the spreader brackets. Yeah, this is definitely the old way of doing things. And you're right, there was a rotten wooden spreader on here. So I think the spreader bar idea is a good one. We are going to convert to rod rigging. That's even a cleaner way of doing it.
Right.
And then I guess one last question is, what can we do different than the masthead we have on this boat? That's about the heaviest piece on the whole rig.
Sure.
So let's take a look at that. Well, Buzz, this is the masthead. It's sort of the old traditional style of things. Quite a bit of windage in the front. It's a lot of weldments. I think it's kind of heavy. All the reinforcings in the spar here. Where is the technology today, and what's your recommendation on where we go with the new rig?
Well, there are a number of different mastheads that are available. Some of it really depends on how you're going to use the boat.
Right.
Kind of the cleanest ones tend to be more for racing-oriented boats, which
Okay.
I think you're going to do some of that. There's a masthead called a trisect, which I can show you at the shop,
All right.
which is kind of the smallest, cleanest racing masthead. 3 forward halyards and a main halyard. You could actually have 2 main halyards if you wanted. You can put cranes on for external halyards, which a lot of people do when they sail transpac because
Right.
there's a lot less chafe with an external halyard. There's also offshore style, which is sort of a early version of an offshore. There used to be a couple of bales on the front, and the halyards would come down into the mast down here. We can still do those. We usually sink them into the mast so there's less windage.
Okay.
We don't put as much gusseting on, it's just not necessary. And that is one, if you're sailing offshore a lot, you have the external halyards, but it's certainly heavier, and it's certainly much more windage than a trisect is.
Okay. I think what we would probably like to do is come down and take a look at the shop. We could talk in more detail about
Great.
some of the features on
That
it.
sounds good, sure.
And we'll try and get that organized. I think that's a wise move. It always makes me nervous. This rig is, despite how good a shape it's in, is almost 50 years old.
Yep.
And it's, I think it's probably time to look at a new extrusion that is more suited for what we're trying to do with the boat.
Sounds great.
All right? So that's great. Thank
Good.
you.